it meant going through the feelings of shame while being witnessed by someone, which was, I think there's different ways, some medicine you can do on your own. I think when there's a feeling of shame connected in, it's so helpful to be witnessed by someone and have them not judge or not walk away.
Yeah, that's it. Hey there, beautiful. This is Anneke, and you are listening to the Original Medicines podcast, in which we look for usual and unusual medicines for mental health. In this podcast, you can expect conversations about life and death, through stories, mystical experiences, critical questions, and sometimes silence, where deeper layers of our existence can be unraveled, where we can find gems of insight and clues for healing. I investigate the relationship with each other as humans and with our inner parts and the earth, with the aim of better understanding of the transformation in which we collectively find ourselves. Today's guest is Emma. I have known Emma for quite some years now, and I know that she is the right person to open up a very beautiful and for some terrifying topic, the dark night of the soul. Welcome, Emma. How have you been doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm going through the journey, and just really, really delighted to be here with you. Normally, I'm the one on the other side of the podcast microphone, so it's lovely to be a guest here with you. And as you were speaking there and describing your podcast, I was getting goosebumps. I was really resonating with I love your approach. I love the way you shine your light. So I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah, me too. And this is exactly how I feel when I listen to you, or when I'm reading what you're doing. And we've known each other for quite some years, so we've seen each other's development, which is very cool, I think, to see that. And now also for the preparation for this podcast, I've been looking again at what you're doing. I'm like, oh my God, Emma, this is so beautiful. I'm really so excited for who you are and what you're bringing into the world. To start, I would like to see like what are the intentions, and how is this for you? What is your deepest intention in this meeting? Can you share something?
Well, when you sent through some questions earlier, it was very, very quick. What came to mind for me there was to inspire and reassure in equal measure. For me, for any of this journey, I need both. Inspiration without reassurance can sometimes trigger me and it feels too far away. But that authentic story of somebody who I can see doing something beautiful or creative, and they share the backstory, the process, the kind of the swan's feet underneath. For me, that just really hits the spot, and that's what I hope today. And I also, when you asked that question just now, what came into mind was I also want to celebrate myself. That's not something that I've always found so easy, but I feel like it's time that we celebrate ourselves and each other. So both of and all of those things I intend for this conversation.
Wow, that is so beautiful. And yeah, let's go for the celebration here. I love that. That's very inspirational for now, and and when we are moving further in our lives and in our work that we are doing. So starting with, just here now, your name. Where does your name come from? Are you named after someone?
the story I usually say about my name is that my name's Emma, and I was born in 1978 in the United Kingdom, and in 1977 Emma was the most common name. So what I've often said is I've got one of the most common names in the UK for that time, and I was just slightly after. I was just slightly behind the trend. So that was a kind of the funny story. And generally, anywhere you go around here, you find another Emma in my generation anyway. So yeah, I was born in the United Kingdom. Do you want me to keep going just now?
Sure,
Flow
sure,
into the family
sure.
situation. I've thought about my story on a number of occasions. So actually, one time, very specifically in response to some work that you had been doing, I think you really got people reflecting on their story and the markers and the people in it, but also in terms of presenting myself out to the world and what I have to offer, and kind of, I guess, in relation to that name being very common, I feel like my story and my family situation was nothing massively extraordinary, nothing that really kind of made you stand out from the kind of mainstream in this country. And I think that's, for me, that is part of what makes my story, is that it is so common in so many ways. But there's a lot about my story that is kind of extraordinary or extreme, and it's arisen from that kind of mainstream culture, that mainstream setting that I grew up in, where I grew up in northeast Scotland, in Aberdeen, which was the kind of capital of the oil industry in this country. And my mum and dad moved from the south of England up to the northeast of Scotland just before I was born. So when my mum had her first child, she was miles away from her own family, which now, as a mum myself, I'm like, whoa, that this was a big thing. So she had her first child without the support of her family around her, and in a completely new setting, a new setting where she would identify as English. We were in Scotland, and there was still sort of antagonism between Scotland and England. And while it wasn't like, huge racism, there was definite negative feedback around having English people around. So, yeah, I mean, there's an awful lot I could say about my family setting that I've now learnt has played quite a big part or had a big impact on my life. But one of the main things is I was born almost 2 months premature, and then taken away from my mum very quickly, put into a kind of a hospital incubator, and had very little contact with her for the first few weeks of life. And it's much more recently, just in the last few years, I've realised what an impact that had, that I didn't properly attach to my mum. Which now, with that knowledge, shining it back on life, I recognise that the importance of the mother space in a child's life being that first safe place that a child comes back to, and that not having been there had a massive impact on my nervous system. So I don't know, I could keep talking about the family situation. Let me know if you want to come in, or if you're happy for me to keep going.
Yeah. And you mentioned this, like these first moments on Earth, in your living outside of the womb, not being connected to your mother, and you do say it has an impact on your nervous system. When did you realize that? And how did you realize that?
I think from training through some of the training, I became more and more aware of that, the impact of our caregivers on the development of our nervous system. So I came to understand it mentally, that kind of experience would have a big impact on you. And I remember speaking about it with other people. This has been a big part of my journey, is I go and do training or studying to find out about things that will help other people. And then a bit later on, I'm like, oh, that's relevant to me. Aha. So it was after I became aware generally of the impact of those early months or years on our system. I then actually, the way that I became much more bodily aware of the impact on me was actually through singing lessons that I was doing with someone who paid significant attention to my diaphragm and the way I was using my lower belly. Now, I'd done a lot of work on this, through a lot of yoga training, a lot of yoga teaching, practice. So I kind of thought I was quite connected into my body at that point. But through trying to breathe in a way that let my voice come out clearly, I started having all these memories back of birth and of it just became really obvious, like, oh my goodness, I was born before my system was ready to breathe. And then also just like the difficulty I found to make a clear, authentic expression, either just saying who I am or singing or just asking for something I want or need in a direct way. All of that started to emerge in a very bodily way, following those singing lessons. And it's kind of taken a while to start to ease into I wouldn't say it's the pattern's been completely dissolved and it's clear now, but I'm aware of it much more.
Oh, this is so beautiful what you're saying. Eh? So actually singing was like a medicine for you. What kind of impacts had singing on you? And
again, that's been a journey. I started before that instance. That was one-to-one singing with somebody, and prior to that, I'd joined a community choir with someone who I know is he holds a really safe space. So that had started to kind of slowly open up. That helped me remove a lot of the shame. A big part of what I found and what we work with within the GrowFree community is like that impact of shame, and how, I guess the imprint that's left in a young child who's, perhaps in an incubator, making a sound for help that's not answered, and then that puts that infant nervous system into the freeze response, and then the threat here, I'm not being listened to, I go quiet now I'm trying to look really small, and how the emotional tone of shame gets attached to that, and then how difficult any time I tried to use my voice, it would bring up that feeling of that same nervous system reaction and the feelings of shame. So in terms of it being a medicine, by that point, one of the reasons that I chose to do singing lessons was because, well, I wanted to be able to express myself, and I recognised that we can use anything as medicine, and that like the impact on my voice having it being so closed down, that actually I was going to need to do something that was connected to using my voice in order to find a medicine. So it was, I love the word medicine, and it can mean so many different things, can't it? But it is uncomfortable. It meant going through the feelings of shame while being witnessed by someone, which was, I think there's different ways, some medicine you can do on your own. I think when there's a feeling of shame connected in, it's so helpful to be witnessed by someone and have them not judge or not walk away.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was so beautiful, and I love what you say. I wanted to be able to express myself. So it's very powerful how you articulate that you wanted this. I wanted to be able, and I think this level of consciousness, and that you are not only realizing there's pattern, but also getting more clear, like where the patterns are and where might they be rooted. Like we're not always sure. Like we just discovered things in our lives, and we are also kind of guessing, like, what could it be? And then you're gonna like figure things out by trying things on. And sometimes you feel like, yeah, definitely I'm hitting a button here. This is definitely, I'm onto something, right? And it seems like you and your voice and the connection to your like infant life, it's very beautiful how you managed to find these connections, and also how you are managing to work with that and work through it, and having this very clear statement, this is what I want. It means a lot for me. Like it means that you have this insight, you have this clarity, and actually you're there to take responsibility for it. Like, this is what I want. Means I'm taking responsibility for whatever I am. Yeah, I'm not like finger pointing to anybody, but this is the pattern I'm noticing, and this is what I want. I want to work through this.
Yeah. Well, that's where the freedom comes, doesn't it? And a lot, a lot of the work I've done with you has helped shine a light back on that awareness and that process, and coming to the point where you start to feel safe enough with whatever patterns you see in yourself, and with the process is so important. I remember coming to you for some work when it just felt there was things that I was seeing within me that it just didn't feel safe enough to show anyone. It felt like the level of anxiety, the level of reactivity. What I started to kind of piece it into was that I felt like a herd animal, a kind of weak member of the herd, and that if I was to show anyone, that I was going to be pushed out of the herd. I was going to be left behind. The herd would be off doing going to the next place, doing their thing. And a lot of, it was kind of unconscious. A lot of that was unconscious, but I started to become more aware of well, what is it? Why can't I show anyone? Because I remember you asking, why are you so scared still now? What is unsafe now about your life? And really then digging deep into that, and I think that early birth experience, along with a lot of others in my body, and also I've found, that in previous generations I was holding on to things, was that trapped freeze, that trapped shame. It just really needed a lot of holding, a lot of holding, and tiny little steps to dare to show someone else. And then when you realize, and this is one of the biggest messages that the trauma lens has given me, beyond a lot of the yoga training and all of that, where I come back and I'm like, wow, the answers are all there. But something about the trauma lens puts such a level of clarity, and for me, around understanding what shame is, that it is that stuck freeze, that I'm trying to be so small here that the predator doesn't see me, means that I then become free of the actual story that the shame's telling me. The shame's telling me that I can't show you this. But then when I just see it as a story, I'm like, okay, I could try here. But the thing with the birth thing, it was so pre-verbal, so physical. Like I would be in that singing lesson, being asked to copy the sound, to produce it back. And I'd be kind of like a normal person, kind of walking into the lesson, or like 2 minutes before being asked, and then like literally that expectation of speak, and my body just went into like, I could feel it. I could feel it tensing up, and the like just not having that freedom to move my diaphragm or anything in the way it wanted. And it was such an obvious example and experience that showed how clearly, in a moment I could go into that trigger, and my ears are not working the same, my eyes are different, my body is different.
And those are also, of course, also skill that you've learned over time to recognize this and to notice this, and maybe even to feel these things, right? Yeah. What a beautiful explanation of your experience, and I think it makes things very clear. I'm very happy that you found ways out where you were feeling safe enough. I love that word as well, safe enough. Like we're looking for safety, and sometimes it's just safe enough to dare courageously make little steps or bigger steps. And sometimes we are choosing, and sometimes we're not even choosing, but life is just choosing for you, right? Yeah, thank you for sharing your experience so clearly. And sometimes we can choose to to look at our patterns and to work with those, and have, if we feel safe enough. And sometimes, ready or not, but off we go, right? So if I say the dark night of the soul, then what do you say?
Well, the first thing that came to mind was a chuckle. And, now I'm absolutely delighted by the idea of the dark night of the soul, because it would have been like the dark years of the soul for me. So I think my understanding of it has changed so radically that now when something comes up, when something's triggered in me, unconsciously says, just say we said that the dark night of the soul is a kind of unconscious triggering of some experience that's trapped within you. To be able to move through that in a night or less now, for me, is an absolute gift. I would say, a big part of my early life was the dark years of the soul, and the different ways that I learned to cope with constantly living in a body that was triggered. I guess, I developed a personality over the top that sometimes I could kind of manage, and I would be either trying really hard at life or managing my life in such a way and preventing certain kinds of experiences that triggered me. And I ended up with, fairly limited life in a lot of ways at different times in my life. I would say I'd had dark years or nights of the souls in my kind of early 30s, where I was like looking around and going, I'm not getting into the kind of relationship that I would like to be getting into. I'm not able to make a family. And there was times there where I would be either really stuck in that feeling or avoiding that feeling. for long periods of time, and right back into my kind of 20s and teenage years. That was going on. I was pretty triggered a lot of the time and stuck in those triggers. There wasn't really a flow to my life.
And how did that express itself in those times?
Lots of different ways, I guess. Early on, I think even in childhood, my mum would probably say now that I developed quite an avoidant. I was quite masterful at avoiding. I didn't do singing lessons when I was a kid. I avoided a lot of activities, and I'd have times when I kind of isolated. I found it challenging to be around other people, and in teenage years, it would, I guess. It was most obvious expression or symptom was around food, like bulimic behaviors, and that became, alcohol and drugs came into the picture as my way of coping. My way of coping to be around other people, which then grew arms and legs in itself, because then I couldn't put the substances down. I ended up in psychiatric hospital. So there was like diagnosis then of depression, food disorders, and actually when it came to a diagnosis of addiction, that was my own. Nobody else put that on me. I found a kind of healing environment in the 12-step community, and I owned that. That was a kind of quite a pivotal moment. In, I guess, starting to look at patterns. There was a kind of quite a clear lens that was offered within that environment, and that helped me start to put down different behaviours. But it only got so far in, and then later on, even though I'd put down alcohol and drugs, and I had a much different relationship with food, there was still a lot of anxiety and reactivity and issues with relationships. And actually what happened in that environment was some of my early family experience got re-triggered within the relationships that I was having as an adult. And that's when I started to really learn. It was actually at that time that deep shame got triggered, because I got like feedback I got from other people was kind of quite negative, and I just was so triggered into this absolute shame. I felt like this horrific person that was still behaving in certain ways that were called selfish, and then I started to learn about trauma and go, okay, oh wow, this is what's been going on, and oh my goodness, it's not all my fault. It's not all my fault. And that started to shine this amazing light. And I think that then for me, the passion around understanding trauma and sharing it with others became huge. So yeah, that was, I guess, yeah, that kind of trigger in adulthood really kick-started a movement there. And then also becoming a mum and the triggers that brings up, for me, another huge motivation. Yeah,
I would love to hear more about that, but I would also like to step a little bit back to this 12-step plan. Mm-hmm. Or the Minnesota model. It's all, I don't know if you call it the 12 steps or the Minnesota model. But can you explain a little bit about these steps and what they mean to you, and how this connects also to the dark night of the soul, as like if you translate this as like losing grip to with everything, even with God or with anything, like because I also see that in the 12 steps, if you work through the steps, on top there is something about like consciousness of God, or how do you want to call it. There's something about connecting with this element, which is an important part of the healing process, I think.
Yeah,
Do you see that, like this, the fact that we might feel completely left alone, even by whatever consciousness or God or whatever you believe in, and how the 12 steps, is connect. I think connection is very important, plays a very important there, but even connecting to like a spiritual part within yourself, because this also what I hear all these years working with so many different people, that I hear people talk about that, and for some people this is a very beautiful enlightening moment in their lives, or they rediscover God, or they discover, or at least something to lean into which is bigger than themselves. Or for some people it's very triggering, like they're like, I'm not religious, I don't want to go there. So I know of this part in the 12 steps, and how does this relate to the losing this kind of support, bigger support, when you meet this dark night of the soul? You know what I mean?
I think so. I'll start speaking, and we'll see if I've got what you're meaning. But I think at the time, finding that environment, that 12-step environment, came about because I'd hit such a dark place. It wasn't in terms of where I'd been, it wasn't the worst situation I'd been in, but I had gotten to a point where I'd lost hope. I'd been working so hard to try and change patterns. And whatever happened, I kept going back into this dark place, and that, the behaviors I developed to survive didn't let me live. They isolated me so much. They, the collateral damage of needing to survive at all cost when you don't actually have to anymore. That's a big bunch of retrospect, hindsight, being able to look. But so it completely disconnects you from yourself, from your authentic voice, from relationships, from being able to actually connect with anyone else, to connect with anything meaningful, with any meaningful purpose in life. I was just left surviving the feelings inside, the imprints, the triggers, the shame, and something in that. Well, funnily enough, I studied anthropology and picked that up around the same time that I got into the 12-step, and I did my dissertation on the healing process and environment there. So I looked into it a lot, and I think massive factors that they really get right in that environment are sharing your story, and having similar stories with the similar experiences that were felt shameful, expressed and modeled around you, started to bring the defenses down around the shame. So being able to reframe, hearing other people's experiences and starting to be able to reframe your own story now in terms of, in that model at that time anyway, the word disease, and it not being your fault. They're massive parts. And then this whole idea of kind of, putting your hands up and saying, this is beating me in the first step, and not having to try on your own anymore, and then starting to pick pick out, well, what is something I can connect to now? What is something I can put a bit of hope into, or try and create a bit of faith around? And you hear lots of people have different journeys with that, and I've experienced a bit of both. I've experienced the reassurance of starting to find this idea of something bigger than me, and the relationships, maybe something bigger than me is just the fact that here's someone I've met, here's one of my close friends now who I know has a similar experience, and I can tell her how I'm feeling. That's bigger than me. It's bigger than what I had before. So it was quite tangible. It could be quite tangible, that connection, or it could become quite expansive, depending on what felt less threatening, I guess. At times it was a bit less threatening to try and connect with a big concept, an idea of God, than it was to connect with another human being beside me. At other times it was, I couldn't reach that big concept or that big experience, but I could speak to somebody else.
That is beautiful. And then going from from speaking with somebody else or another person next to you, maybe even broader, a concept or of nature, God, or consciousness, or whatever. And did you or could you describe a little bit your path that you go here into yourself? I mean, the path from external other human to maybe even like a bigger energy than that. I don't know if it can even be bigger energy, but just to create a pathway there a little bit.
It's a pathway. I mean, I got into recovery in that 12-step environment in 2004. So we're now 2023, right? So it's most of 20 years. And it's been that path has been ongoing in so many ways. It's maybe a few steps forward and a few steps back, so there'd be times where there was times where I could talk the talk of trusting something, and a lot, now what I understand is, with trauma, we disconnect so much from our body. You've been living your life in a body that is triggered and uncomfortable. It's in high alert all the time. So you're flipped out, and I was absolutely living in my head. So I could talk the talk of a higher power or a connection to God, or even relationships with other people, way before I could actually put a lot of that into practice. And I didn't even know at times when I was putting it into practice or not. And there was time, I remember having step 3 of the 12 steps is around making a decision to turn your will in your life over to this higher power, to surrender your personal will. And I found that really hard. Like internally, I had a lot of resistance to that. To just doing service, or to trust, or to ask. I would just forget to ask for guidance or ask for help. So a lot of the path was making a lot of the same mistakes and finding myself sitting there again, kind of going, okay, let's do some more writing here. Let's reflect a bit more. What's going on? And then it was also like bringing in yoga, the study and the practice, the training, and finding something that started to make my bodily experience different at times as well. And the journey with working out a yoga practice that worked for me has been, as long, because there was all these different kinds of yoga, and there was Ashtangi yoga, and these people looked like they were like really hardcore, and they were doing amazing stuff, and I would be trying to do it, and my body would just be trying to avoid any kind of trigger. So finding an approach that was quite personal and gentle, and yet mildly challenging, and being able to stick with a teacher who was starting to get closer into some of these places within me that didn't want to be seen, that absolutely just did not want to be seen, which I didn't have the awareness of at that time. I was just kind of, people would get so close, and I'd be pushing them away, or different tactics. But where somewhere along the line I started to learn about the pace, and not, what I would often do is feel like I wanted so badly to heal from what was going on inside. I wanted so badly to find a new kind of quality of life or experience, that I'd be pushing myself into situations that were just too far beyond. They weren't anywhere I could feel safe, and they weren't even on my edge of where I might just learn to grow a bit here. I would just push myself way out into the wilderness in different activities, whether it was in a yoga practice or in relationships or life in general. So starting to learn, okay, what's a way of creating a kind of gentle, supportive, holding practice for me, that then also lets me start to take little challenging steps. So yeah, there's been a fair amount of self exploration, self-led kind of guidance that maybe took me on a lot of detours and meandering, and slowly then opening up a little bit and enough to other people to let their light come back in and make suggestions. And some of those suggestions have come from you, having some mentorship sessions with you, or therapeutic sessions, and slowly learning to let a few trusted people in that have helped me really kind of work out, right, what's going on,
and find your own rhythm.
My own rhythm.
Yeah, it's your own rhythm. Like, there is always a rhythm, but finding and connecting to your rhythm, to your natural rhythm, to your nature, nature. And I find it, this is also a place where our interests are heavily meeting, nature and permaculture. The more I learn about permaculture and nature, the more I see how this connects to my own being and our beings as human beings. And the more we are able to let ourselves be and trust that nature will find the rhythm. But you need to feel safe enough to let yourself be. And also what I find beautiful in natural world is everything that pops up is there for a reason. And even though we don't like it so much, or we didn't plan it, or it's like some plants are, they're hurting your fingers if you touch them, but they're there because maybe the roots are very strong and they are plowing the earth for another for another plant or something else that's coming up. So I think that's very beautiful also to learn and to be inspired by nature, and how nature is catching up with the rhythms and realizing that we're nature too. How was nature?
Been a massive part of mine.
Yeah. How was this for you?
Well, alongside studying yoga, I've done a lot of shamanic work and yeah, studying of permaculture and anthropology, and they all kind of came in together to start to, I see patterns a lot. So sharing the patterns between the different approaches, and noticing the different ways that they would frame something. And, some really helpful experiences for me were out in nature, being guided to reconnect. And in a way, I guess, we spoke about how you can have dark nights of the soul that are unconscious, or you can choose some kind of conscious experience or ceremony to help you. And I went and did a vision quest where you spend 3 or 4 nights out in nature. And I wasn't entirely sure what the experience was about or what it was going to be, but essentially it's a kind of sitting practice, sitting meditation, but outside in nature. When you set your intention and what you're looking to get clear on, and in that experience, meditation became something completely different. It was something completely different to meditate out in nature and be gifted insights by the world around you than it was to sit in a room. And yeah, some of the clarity and the insights that came through in that period of time, which, it was about flow, and it was about, you've got to let yourself rest here. You're when you're on that survival mode, you're kind of constantly going. But I was really shown very powerfully out there by nature and by the energy, like, you need to rest long enough until you're actually guided by that inner impulse to come back up and start moving. And that, I think that's something that trauma really robs you of, isn't it? Is your flow, your rhythm.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's Peter Levine that describes it as, trauma leaves your nervous system hijacked. You're constantly being hijacked by your nervous system. So your rhythm now is like, go, urgent, keep going, do, and some more, and then collapse maybe because you just can't keep going. But being really shown
gracefully,
kind of, yeah, oh yeah. Well, things are becoming a little more graceful now. There's still some rigidity or. But like I don't know when, how many years ago it was to start really connecting more with nature. But that, again, it's just been another huge asset and ally in the toolkit. And getting to know plants, like we spoke about when you started to speak about bringing nature in there, a massive sometimes you just need to hear a story, right? And it hits something really deep inside that just goes, whoa. And
stories are total medicine.
Absolutely. And this one was just about how, that example of the herd, feeling like a herd animal that was weak and getting kicked out of the herd. My understanding is, like, as our nervous system developed, as we started moving about the planet, and our environment became more unpredictable, we developed this nervous system to help us react and move quickly. But as far as I'm aware, generally plants don't have that nervous system. I'm not entirely sure of all the biology of all of this, but as I clear through the trauma, and I still experience the world absolutely in a human way. But I'm also more and more able to remember life from different consciousnesses and remember life from plant consciousness. So this story that was saying, animals, we've, along the journey of animal development and human development, we've got that experience trapped and caught within us of not wanting to get left behind by the pack. So we hide away things that make us look weak or shameful. But plants, they turn their weakness, their sensitivity into flowers.
Oh.
They actually, you know, open them out and show them to the world. And you know, then the pollinators come and you know, they use it as a way of attracting life. And something in that story really helped me to reframe all this stuff that had felt so shameful, and be able to come out and just say, look, this is who I am. These are some of my weaknesses, my what felt like failings or sensitivities, or all of it was trying to survive. And if I show you, and the more I do that now, the more it attracts. And I'm like, wow, and it heals. You know, who knew? You know, all these things that you hear. Vulnerability is our biggest superpower or whatever, and you hear it, but the more and more you let it sink into your nervous system and you start living it, then it really has the ability to change and heal all our experience. I mean, it's phenomenal, isn't it? Like the shift and the change that can come.
And it was so beautiful story what you're telling here. And we have a nerve system, and we have a system in place where we can actually feel ashamed for our imperfections. But flowers, I don't know, maybe they do, but I don't think so. I don't think they feel ashamed. They, you know.
I think that's where plants help me so much, because they don't, like when I work with plants now, and you get into that consciousness, there isn't the clutter and the confusion of a lot of, you know, human experience, or even, I mean, animals as well. Yeah, I've done work with, like, you know, power animals or totem animals or what have you, but you know, for me, the plant life just cuts through so much of the nonsense, the drama. It feels much more clear. Yeah, I don't think they feel ashamed. I don't think they're trying to be another plant. I think there's just a clarity there, and they're there, and there's a diversity, and they work together. There is a fit. There's a fit for, you know, every plant has a fit.
And they move around each other. They just,
yeah,
you know, so beautiful. Yeah, that is so beautiful. And yeah, I love to be out in nature, and what the experience that you were just sharing of being in nature in the meditation. That is a very beautiful example. But how do you integrate this in your daily life? Like, I guess you're not weekly on 3-day nature meditation trips, especially as you know, as being a mother and having a family and a business. So how do you integrate this in your life, this wisdom?
I guess it's just an ongoing process. We moved from the city to, we lived quite rural now, out in the country when my daughter was about 6 months. And I remember thinking at the time, I wonder how long it's going to take me being out here before my way of life changes. And it's changing slowly. So like today's a work day for me, and it's taken time, I guess, to let go of some of the guilt of a work day. You're working in, you know, and you've got your schedule, but to go out and make, you know, to take time out in nature. I know, like, going out for a walk or a run out there, it does something powerful, and starting to learn to trust that more isn't always more. You know, sometimes less work is more creative or more productive. And just, I guess, you know, making choices. We're living on a site here where we've set aside some of the site for community activities and a community garden. We're trying to be as self-sustainable as we can. but it's a big learning curve. We're not there, and it's, I don't, you know, integrating all of this is a slow process, but essentially winters look quieter than they used to. I mean, last year, we run a Rest to Rise retreat, which started in January. You know, just about letting January, February stay quiet. This year, my body was like, hey, you know, start that in January, start it in November. You know, like get quiet in November. I want to already be like on a different schedule than summer for sure. So in terms of what I'm delivering business wise, I'm slowly not trying to fit in 8 or 10 courses a year. I'm a bit more like, okay, right, springtime is this is a good time for delivering this kind of thing. Summer, we want to be outside. We don't want to be sitting at the computer.
Yeah, that's beautiful to connect it with the seasons. And again, here I feel very much in a similar way. And yeah, if we can already change this as a very simple thing, like listen to what our bodies needs in the different seasons that we are, like in the winter, spring, what are the differences? How much do we want to produce or create? And if we're not very creative, like, can we rest? Can we actually let ourselves rest? Yeah. Well, that's
and
beautiful. I'm very
that word rest.
I'm sorry.
I think reframing that word rest as well for me was massive, because sometimes it is the most creative thing you can do, isn't it? Like,
totally. Yeah. Yeah. I'm very curious. Like I'm very visual person, so I'm imagining you're living where you're living is a little bit hilly with old rocks and trees. I don't know. It's just because I've been only in Ireland. I never been in your area, but I saw how, you know, in Ireland I had a feeling as if I was like 100 years back in time.
It can kind of be like that here in lots of ways. We're in the northeast of Scotland, which has one of the most ancient geology and culture. So in this area we've got like the most phenomenal amount of stone circles where you can really go and really connect very instantly with ancient human life that was way more connected to the seasons, the energy, the astrology. And we've also got like some of the most horrific forestry practices, around, where they've just chopped everything down. So it's very agricultural. But yeah, I mean, and it gets dark here in winter, like I can't think exactly what line we're on compared to the Netherlands. But, this time of year, really, between sort of 9 and 3 is your daylight hours. If you don't get outside for a decent amount of time during the day, you
missed it for the day.
You missed it, yeah, exactly.
So then back into the dark night. A lot of dark nights there.
Well, winter, yeah. I mean, it really is a time to let yourself, and the gifts of letting ourselves go into our ancestry, I think are so huge. Because a big part of what I've learned is that, I would say I had a dark night of the soul in terms of sitting with shame that lasted for like 3 or 4 years. And I was sat there going, all right, how long do I need to sit with you? How long, it didn't seem to matter what I did. And I was sitting there going, where are you coming from? And it was like, boom, and my dad's mum came in. I was like, oh, this isn't mine. This is not all mine. This is not all mine. And I sat and I let my maternal grandmother cry and express the shame she'd felt of having a child taken away from her. And you can't do that unless you allow space and time in your life. When we just keep going, when we're just still going and still surviving, and running from the shame, or going on the keeping on the productive hamster wheel, we don't let it through.
This is very that's very beautiful. There's another medicine to be found also, like the pearls of the recognition and learning about your history, and maybe through the generations, and actually allowing the pains or the trauma that went through the history to be alive as well, or be there as well. So there is something very interesting, I think, in this dark night of the soul, or crises, or difficulties, or shame in our lives, where we want to push it away and we want to get rid of it as soon as we can. But there is this I find very interesting. There could be there could be medicine within the dark night of the soul.
Yeah. Well, if you can stay in the darkness long enough to find the light, because that's a big part of this lesson, isn't it? That of how the universe works is we cannot feel joy without feeling grief. We cannot feel expansion without retraction. You can't. It's all here for a purpose, and when the more we learn to stay and hold the feelings, the more our perspective can grow, so that we can see it. We can see it more for what it is, and we can allow all of it, because we need all of it.
And the question is, what do we need? What do we need in order to be able to stay there? And it's not about feeling safe, but it's about something else, I think.
I don't know. I guess I hear different people have different feelings or understandings around the word safe, and I think the word safe for me works because of the understanding I have, but maybe for other people it would be resilience or what have you. But or to feel safe, feeling unsafe, if there's a word for that, it's to hold the human nervous system doing its thing when it doesn't feel safe. For me, it's a process that it has grown over time, and to put different frames on it, or different perspectives, so that you're not bypassing any of it. It's not no one's, or I'm not sitting here saying this human experience is all. You can get to a certain point where it's all comfortable now, and even it's not, the pain's not real. Once you've got a big enough perspective, no loss is real. Nothing that's actually true can be broken or whatever. On the human level, it can hurt, and it's messy, and it's and at the same time as having that, you can hold it in a perspective that allows you to flow through and not get stuck, so that it can be a dark night rather than a dark week or month or year or life.
Exactly, that's it. It can be a dark night instead of a dark life. And if we look back to like the polyvagal theory and our nerve system, I see kind of like a blending there in the red and the green, like it's both at the same branch, of course.
At the same time.
It's the same. So if I see that a lot of people are stuck in fight and flight. I see some people are stuck in the freeze, and I realized recently, like a lot of what I know and all my inspirations are coming through working with people and with my own nerve system, but also working with other people. And I realized recently, which was a very beautiful, like eureka moment for myself is that I've always seen this polyvagal theory and this system as a linear thing. So it's a green, orange, red, like a line, linear thing. But now I've seen it in a circular. All of a sudden it clicked for me. It's not linear, it's circular. So if you're in the red zone, let's say, in the dorsal vagal area, and you go deeper and deeper, it gets more red and more red, it gets pitch dark, and then green again.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. When you stay with it.
Yep, exactly.
When you stay with it long enough.
And then realizing it's all the same thing. Once you realize that actually the dark and the light is the same thing, it's just the other side of the coin. And recently, a little while ago, I saw a video of Alan Watts and how he was explaining the yin-yang sign, and I like it so much how he was saying that actually the white dot in the middle of the black, it needs the black to exist even, and the other way around. So yeah, it's not like the one part is eating up the other parts, because nothing is going to be eaten. It's just there, and it will be just there. But you need to define the one, you need the other. So to give a definition, to see it, to bring it into existence, actually, you need the other part. So you need a light to bring the dark into the existence, and you need the dark to bring the light into the existence. But our beautiful human brain does not accept that. So we want just the light. We want the cupcakes and the unicorns and the rainbows, and when things are difficult, we push it away. And it's normal, I think, but I think it's very important to realize, to realize it a little bit deeper, that there's more to there's gems to be found in the darkness. And
I think we were supposed to get to the point where we pushed it away so quickly. We were supposed to get to this point of separation, the forgetting our universal connection. It was supposed to get this dark in a way.
We were blind,
remembering it,
searching, blind, like confused, lost souls.
Yeah.
Until we remember again, indeed.
Yeah, and remembering is beautiful, and I think that's is such a key when you come to really know the process and trust it, so that when you're going into the dark, I mean, there's still times where I go into it and I'm reactive, but it's never quite without. I don't never have a candle, or there's a different relationship with it now, where it's not completely unconscious, and coming back and remembering when you've experienced such a lot of darkness or grief or loss or shame, to come back and then experience joy and connection is amazing. It's like double the prize, maybe. I don't know.
And also this way, being able to meet other people who are struggling, and finding or looking for that somebody who is their reflection person, who is there just safe enough, kind of space holder. That's very beautiful, and I'm very happy that to see what is the work that you're doing these days, and very, very beautiful how you are like journeying through life, and creating your business even also around it, and the community work you're doing is very, very beautiful. And I was reading, and I'm just curious if this fits, because it made me very curious. I was reading that you were writing about the Ewoks. I'm not sure how this, what this means for you and how it maybe connects to this topic. But you wrote that the Ewoks who helped the Rebel Alliance defeat the Galactic Empire in Star Wars. And I'm curious why this is important for you and how it connects to this story.
I think it fits into like the whole approach we've set up. Is it recognizes that this is a cyclical process. You know, whether it's recovering from trauma or just growing as a human being is this cyclical process. And in the GrowFree approach, we've kind of identified a number of phases. It's definitely not linear, but so one of them is about education and observation, coming to understand that, you know, trauma and learning how to observe yourself. But the next one that I've written down is around activation, having different qualities or experiences or consciousnesses activated within you. The next step is practice, but you can only practice something that's been activated. I'm sure yoga must speak about it, but I'm not sure what words they put on it. And it relates back to the kind of like our neurobiology of you know, the mirror neurons, how you know, just the way a mother is with its child is activating. It's giving an experience, because we then mirror what we're presented with. We get a taste of what that is. So if we've got a really anxious mother, we're going to be given a taste of anxiety. We've got a very calm, flowing mother, we're going to be given a taste of that calm flowingness. But that whole sense of something being activated really made me think about, you know, fictional stories and characters, and, you know, wherever they come from, whether it's yogic deities, whatever visualization or
Star
character.
Wars.
Yeah, and Star Wars. This was so I loved I remember watching that film as a kid, and the Ewoks just activated something in me, you know. And it was a longing for this, like, a forest living community. So there was I kind of wanted to bring them into this event that we were doing, because fiction's not just fiction. It activates something within us that we can then give back to the world. And I just loved something in those Ewoks. But, you know, they're very they used primitive technology, but they were holding really big hearts. And there was just something very, like, I loved something in that example of this grounded forest community. And I basically, that's what I want to develop. You know, I'm trying to run a business and make a living for my family, but I really just want to develop a forest community. Why? Come and live with me. You know, come and live with me. Come and, you know, come and create this, like, forest playground, and we'll talk to the plants and grow things and sing together.
I would definitely. I'm not sure if I want to live there, but I would definitely want to visit you there, and talk with the plants and sing together. Definitely, yeah. I would love to do this. So we're heading towards an end of this show today. This is connected to the work that you're doing right now, in these days. Can you share a little bit more about where people can find you? What kind of work people can do with you?
So, well, essentially, I'm called GrowFree with Emma B, or GrowFree is the kind of the approach and the material, and we have the GrowFree community, which is our kind of community organization that delivers the peer support that we put in place, because a big part of what we believe here is that, you know, once we all know and trust the process, we can hold each other through it. There's a space for qualified therapy, but there's a big space for community. So we've got a bunch of resources and a program that kind of sets out the process that is the same for all of us, wherever it comes from, wherever we've observed it across different traditions. It's not about just yoga. It's about, identifying what the main steps are, the different practices and tools, and how we can integrate those past experiences. And then, anyone can take that map and then go through our courses. So we've got courses, we've got weekly peer support sessions. I do monthly closure circle to support people to get into their early attachment or ancestral experiences and start to let them go. Probably the best way to find me is at community.grow-free.com. We've got a YouTube channel, the GrowFree YouTube channel, and hopefully 2024 we'll get a bit more kind of strategic with that. But it's a lot of online work, so wherever you are in the world, you can access a lot of what we do. And then in summer you can come and find us in our community forest garden and come and play.
So I definitely would like to come and play or bring my daughter, and love to see you and your family there. And thank you so much. I will definitely put the link to you under this recording, and I hope that many people will find you online or in person. I totally recommend all the work that you're doing, because I really find you're such a beautiful woman, and I believe that everything that comes through your body is it's so pure, and I don't know, I love it. So thank you for being in this conversation, and also thank you for doing this work. And like I said, I see a lot of similarities in your work and the work I'm doing, and I think the more people are stepping into their authentic self and creating from there, like there is never enough blooming flowers in the world. I mean, there's never enough seeds to share and to spread. And let's see how we can intertwine our gardens of growth and freedom and beauty together. And
absolutely,
I love to be a wildflower with you in that garden. So thank you once more for being there. And thank you also everybody who's listening to this podcast, the Original Medicines podcast, in which I alone or with a guest look for the usual and unusual medicines for mental health. Thank you so much for listening and for sharing this episode with your friends and colleagues in your social networks to help me grow this podcast too. Till next time.